public. I'm not like videotaping you and posting it on YouTube and having the FBI do, you know, facial scans to see if you guys didn't pay your book fees at the public library or something like that. We haven't gone that far yet. So let's just go through the syllabus, and I'll go through the materials that I handed out, and then I'll go through the course website and show you where all the resources are, and then next week we'll kick off and we'll start doing some lectures and stuff like that. But first thing you should do when you come into class is get on the computer, go up to Yahoo Finance, and start pulling down the data, start doing the research. Okay? So I got to get you started in doing the research, and here's just a little footnote. Here's a report that I did. I'll hand it around if anybody's interested in the type of work that I do for a living. You won't be doing decks like this, but similar type of deck. But this is a pretty comprehensive deck. I was hired by a fairly large national brokerage firm, full-service real estate firm, and the principal said, you know, I love your background. You know, I'd like you to do some research. Of course, would you write a paper on the life science space, particularly in the Bay Area, and what drives, you know, the clustering of life science companies to the Bay Area. I mean, the Bay Area next to Boston is like two of the biggest life science clusters in the United States. If you're interested in that space as an industry, I mean, it's just growing. It's going to be the next generation, you know, industry that's going to be taking off. It's already taking off. It's really exciting. It's both science and now data analytics is converging, you know, with the STEM research areas. So what he asked me to do was write this research report, and I told him, hey, you know what? I'll write the report and then I'll publish it in one of the academic journals, and what we'll do is we'll present the research at the conference in April. And he said, I love that stuff. Oh, by the way, two of the partners are coming out on Wednesday, yesterday, basically to talk about investing millions and millions, maybe a couple $1 billion into life science incubator lab space, particularly here in the Bay Area. And we want you to do a presentation, you know, to the managing director of capital markets and to the chief, you know, investment officer. So basically, it took me about 4 days, you know, to download all of the data. Then it took me like 2 days to organize all the data, and then it took me about 4 days to put this deck together. So it's like a 75-page, you know, color, you know, clear. If you look through it, it's a really comprehensive report. That basically is the supporting documentation behind their business plan. Okay. So I went in, I did the presentation. It was about 45 minutes. By the time they left, they were like shaking my hand and saying, you need to come to Dallas and, you know, make this presentation to the senior level executives. And before I went to the, I was dressed like this, right? Totally serious. The Texas guys, you know, they get decked out just like the people from LA. They like to get dressed up and stuff like that. Us from San Francisco, we're more into the tech thing, so we're a little more laid back and stuff. And I didn't want to send that message. I wanted to come right in and let them know that I was totally serious about this. And then I studied the backgrounds of everybody that was going to be in the room, and I memorized their names, so that right when I walked into the room, I went right up to each individual, and I introduced myself and mentioned their name. Hey, Tom, really nice to meet you. Steve, really nice to meet you. They were trying to introduce themselves. I already knew everything about them. I knew everybody by name, right when I came in and when I left. Okay, so that went really well. The meeting went really well, and we'll see what happens with this. This could be, I'll make like $5 grand, you know, off the paper in this report. I've already spent like hours and hours on it, so I'll be making minimum wage, you know, on this thing. But it could lead to other opportunities, and maybe opportunities for you guys as internships and jobs in this real estate brokerage operation. And it could open me up to a consulting business, and it could be a business. I could broker maybe some of the deals, and they may actually hire me as their director of research. Who knows? So you just never know. Don't say no to any opportunity. Just do the best you can, make the pitch, and see where minute ago. So let's go through, so we know the book, right, is Carino book. This is actually a pretty good book, Wiley Plus. Again, I would share the cost, rip it up, take pictures, do whatever you think, or take the Wiley Plus, share the, I probably shouldn't be recording this, share the username and password, and then make it easy on yourself, okay? Share the content. And then here gives you, all of the companies I'm working for right now with the websites. So if you're interested, I basically, again, run an educational platform across multiple universities, teaching multiple classes. That's my core, business to get a salary. And then I work with these startup companies for equity in the company. And if any of these companies take off, I'll probably go work for, as a, managing director of research and analytics or something like that. And then there's my contact information. You can call me, text me anytime. If you email me, I'll probably get back to you. But if you text me, call me, boom, I'll get right back to you if you have any questions or issues or anything. If you're not going to make the class, just let me know so that I know. Okay. So thank you for that. And then on page 2, it lays out all the milestone dates. For the class, it's really broken up into thirds. You have deliverable packages that are due like every month. The first one's a little bit more arduous, and then it scales down and becomes a lot easier at the end of the semester because I got a lot of your time in the front of the semester and I give it back to you at the end when you really need them and you need to focus on your other classes to get really good GPA. And you really need to get really good GPA. You really got to focus on it. It's one of the first things they look at. And then if you don't have a high GPA because you screwed around or for some reason you didn't do as well in your first 2 years, once you start moving through your major, you want to make sure you get really good grades in your major so that you can mention that, yeah, okay, I got a 3.0 overall, but I got a 3.5, 3.6 in my major, and I'm pulling down to 3.7, 3.8 in my concentration. That looks really good. So that's kind of how I've been doing it strategically. If you need accommodations, I'll give you accommodations personally. And then if you need to use SDS and stuff, just let me know and we'll work it out. I'm not stuck on time. It's just learn the content. When you're ready, let's execute. And then my office hours are totally laid out. And then my phone numbers. And then these prereqs. If you could do me a favor on the back of your statistical pre-test. When you hand it in, you can write down the grades that you got in your prereqs. It kind of gives me an idea, where your strengths and weaknesses are. So I can think about it. And again, I'm here to help you, not to hurt you. Although I my sugar levels may crash, and I can drink too much coffee and get a little irritated if I don't take it first. Okay. What else? Page 4. I think all of you are actually pretty good. From what I can see, there's nobody here with a severe case of ADD that needs to check their phone every 3 seconds, for their text and stuff like that. So, limit your cell phone use to doing the research if you don't have a computer or a laptop or handheld. We have computers here for you to be able to do the research. If you hear a term or terminology that you don't understand, Google it, look it up, as quickly as possible. So it should be interactive, right? You shouldn't wait for me to get you the answers. If you don't know something, look it up. You guys are the most powerful generation on earth. You have basically supercomputers in your pockets. You have laptops, you have computers. There's no reason if you have a question or anything, you can look it up right there in a second. And if I ask you questions and you don't know it, look it up, right? And you can probably get the answer within maybe 20 seconds to 2 minutes, right? So you got to learn how to get the information really quickly because you're going to be in these conference rooms with these professionals. And my recommendation is before you go to the meeting, make sure you're totally prepared for the meeting. You know everybody's name who's going to be there. You say hi to everybody. You got the agenda. You studied it. You walk in. You're totally prepared. You sit down. You got your notepad right here. You got your cup of coffee right there. You get the cell phone right here. You get your laptop right there or tablet here. You got all your equipment ready to go. And maybe you pick a spot. Maybe you sit across from the leader of the meeting so that you become a participant in the meeting and you're totally engaged in the process and you end up co-running the meeting. Now you're in a very powerful position, right? And that's where you want to be, okay? And then I'll just give you some advice. When they're conducting these meetings, people that don't say anything or say very little, you're going to get run over totally by somebody who's a little bit more egotistical or narcissistic or thinks they're a smarty pants person. They're going to be doing most of the talking, and they're going to totally take your time, and they're going to talk over you, and they're going to interrupt you. Okay, and you got to be willing and able to tell them, hold on a second, let me finish my thought, then I'll let you go. Okay, and especially women, the guys will walk all over you. So you really got to be even smarter and more strategic in these meetings. It's just psychology and politics. And I'm just warning you now. I'll give you like little tidbits, on giving you some intellectual defense and intellectual capabilities to defend yourself in these hostile corporate environments that you're moving into. You thought school was tough, just wait. But there's a lot of really nice people out there and they'll work with you and stuff, but there's always one, right? There's always one that ruins it for everybody, right? And that's the person you're going to have to deal with. Here's the course description. I would rate it. I really tried to model this class more on a behavioral basis instead of a mechanistic basis. I wanted it to be more like an Ivy League, and really think about what do they teach at the Ivy League? How do they teach? What is the class dynamics from a psychological standpoint, and how do we replicate, not only a real world environment, but a dynamic environment that basically all the Ivy Leaguers, basically take for granted. So that's my goal. And please read, page 5. It lays out the learning objectives for the class. On page 6, there's some redundancy here. People are serious about finance. Even if you're a marketing person and you want to go work for a large brokerage house or a financial institution, you're going to need to know about the finance, even though you're working in marketing. It's great to go work for Salesforce and Google and Dropbox and the tech companies, but it's really hard as a marketing major to get in there because you're competing against the Stanford Cal people, so the competition is a little bit higher. But if you're a marketing major that understands the finance, it's a little easier to get into the financial institutions, the brokerage firms, and the real estate companies. And maybe that's a way to get in, and then you can move over to the tech side at some point. Or you go tech and you move over to finance, depending on where the opportunities are. Okay? And go where the opportunity is. And make some money, because it's important to be able to save and take care of your family. That money really comes in handy when your sister is getting ready to go to college and your parents don't have the money, but you have a really good job and you send your sister to college. That's pretty awesome, right? Because she's modeling you. On page 7, these are all the basically things that you should understand about finance and some of the questions that we'll be addressing. Because we're going to be learning about valuations, and how to value companies and stock and real estate. Well, there's a lot of external events that are occurring that will impact the value of those assets and those asset classes. And we as investment advisors, we are fiduciaries for our clients, so we have to understand what's going on in the world and when an event occurs, what the impact will be on their portfolios and the wealth. Okay? And I work with a lot of pension funds and endowments. And they're really interested in understanding, monetary policy, fiscal policy, geopolitical events, because they have millions or billions of dollars, in assets that they're going to need to liquidate in 30, 40 years from now when those pensioners, start to retire. And if we as the manager aren't cognizant, of what these events, and how these events are going to impact the portfolios, not only short, medium, and long term, but we got to be reacting and making decisions to make sure that we don't lose our clients' money, and we make sure that we grow the assets so that there's enough money there to pay out the pensioners in 30, 40 years. Okay? We'll be talking about that stuff too. And then page 8, again, read this stuff, get familiar with the terminology. The book is a great resource for a lot of this stuff. We don't have an intermediate financial management course here, or corporate finance class. So I brought in some of the intermediate concepts, into here, such as economic value add and, capital structure. We'll talk about that stuff, because it's really important that you understand that, especially if you're gonna go work for a company. Do you think, any company you go work for, do you think they're gonna have a finance and accounting department? Yeah, okay, so I'm over here in accounting, and I'm talking to the accounting and the finance people, and I don't like finance and accounting, but I'm in marketing. You're gonna be working with the finance and accounting people, so you better understand how they talk. And the same thing with the finance and accounting people, you better understand the marketing and the operations and the IT side too. So you gotta do those things. Then on page 9, I laid out the teams, and then I assigned the homeworks, okay? And the solutions to the homeworks are already there. And I had a discussion with one of my students this morning, and I told him, why I do the homework problems and I do the extra credit problems that's the way that I do. Because if I provide you with the solutions, you can study the problem and then go look at the solution, draw it out, look at the problem and the solution, and totally understand the correct way to solve the problem, instead of searching through the book to try to figure it out, to solve the problem either the correct or incorrect way. And if it's incorrect, then you got to go back and figure out how to correct it. So this is just a lot of wasted time in my view. Why not study the problem and study the solution? And then do it over and over again and memorize, hundreds of problems in your brain to totally understand how to do stuff the right way. Because time is your resource, right? And if I can get you to move through a lot of problems, learning them the right way as opposed to a few problems the right way, I'd rather have you learn, 100 problems the right way and memorize it and know how to do the material correctly. Okay, so that's kind of my philosophy, and that's what they do in the real world too. You got a problem, they're going to give you all the resources to be able to solve the problem very quickly and then move on. You're not going to be struggling, because you'll be talking to people, working it out. They'll probably send you to some documentation or a knowledge base that has case studies and where people have done this stuff before. You'll be working in templates, you'll be working in teams, and you'll solve the problem really quickly, do the presentation, move on to the next project. Okay? Or you'll do stuff that you do repetitively on the job that you'll probably be given projects too. And the faster you get stuff done, the more stuff you get done, the more money you're gonna make, the higher the bonuses, the faster the promotion. And the promotions, move pretty quickly. I know people who they don't think they're gonna get promoted in a year, they get promoted in 3 to 6 months, because they came in and they were just hungry and angry and got it done, right? And they were so impressed that they gave them promotions because the turnover was high, because they were laying off or firing other people that weren't working out, or they left. So the turnover creates opportunity to move up really quickly if you perform, okay? And then at the bottom of page 9, on page 10, I have some of the key videos. I'm going to go through the lecture, but if you want to watch the video, particularly marketing majors. I basically designed a lecture on financial product development, which is totally relevant now, considering that fintech is one of the hottest sectors in VC right now, funding startup companies in financial tech, which is basically just finance coupled with big data analytics and computations and building online payment systems or other types of financial technology companies. It's pretty amazing. And then yield curves. I have 3 lectures on yield curves. I spent a lot of time on yield curves up front. I've been told I spend too much time on yield curves, but you really can't understand what impacts the value of assets in companies if you don't understand yield curves. Because the yield curves, and I'll go through it in a minute, are really determined by monetary policy. So if you're following monetary policy, you know what the yield curves are doing, and you know what the impacts on the value of stocks, bonds, real estate, derivatives, currencies are going to be. So we got to start with the macroeconomics and then drill into the financial microeconomics. And the financial microeconomics is finance, corporate finance, okay? But nobody ever really ties it all together. They teach the courses separately as opposed to an integration of all of the disciplines, so you can see how finance is integrated into accounting and into microeconomics, macroeconomics, monetary policy, fiscal policy, because it's all related, okay? And then today, today is the 20th? 13th. But do I have the wrong dates on these things? Oh, no, I got it. Okay, perfect. So we're on time. Sorry about that. So I assigned the homework on the 11th, and then on the 18th and the 20th, I'm going to look at the statistical pretest. I'll look at it to see if you've done it. Most people usually have them done with some gaps in it. I'll probably go over it today really quickly. And then some people didn't even do it. So it's like, dude, you need to get your stuff together. But you got to show me the statistical pretest on the 20th, okay? And then it's due on the 27th, so I give them plenty of time to do this stuff. And then the memo, the first memo is due. You probably want to show me the memo as soon as possible. I'll go over the memo with the structure, the logic, the analysis behind it. And then you'll give me the stock market memo. On the 25th or the 27th, I'll spot check it. And if you do a really good job, I'll go, okay, now do oil. Now do gold. So once you've reached a certain milestone on your memos, then I'll be pushing you to do more. And then what I'll do is I'll review the memos over and over and over again, and then hopefully we'll sit down at some point, and I'll go through the memos, and I'll teach you how to edit at business level communications level as a managing director. Because what you're going to do is you're going to be working with people at some point that don't have the writing skills that you have developed, and you're going to have to train them in how to write. And the only way that you can do that is you have to sit down next to them and basically walk them through the memos, correcting and editing them right there with them next to you, seeing how you edit, and what happens is you end up picking up the editorial skill set that you need to be a very successful senior executive, okay? If you think that you don't need to write and communicate, you're living in a bubble, okay? The most influential executives are amazing writers, okay? They're amazing communicators, okay? So PowerPoint presentations, leading meetings, writing memos, writing reports, editing memos, editing reports, editing PowerPoints. They're doing all that stuff. Because we're talking millions of dollars in most cases. And even when you get into the hundreds of thousands of dollars, you can't make a mistake. You really can't make a mistake, okay? So perfection is really what you're driving to, okay? In everything that you do. Is that right in sports too? Is that correct in basketball too? Perfecting the techniques so that you can beat your opponent and win?
Yeah.
Yep. And then on page 11, the homework's going to be due on March 5th. Okay? And then I'll need a cover page. I'll show you what the cover pages look like. Actually, they look just like this. You know, it's basically laid out like that. I have some templates actually out here of the cover pages. I'll bring them. So you're going to have to do the homeworks, and you're going to have to have a cover page and staple it together. Okay? And you're going to have it written out. Now, it's got to be legible. Some people have like an 8th grade mentality where they basically think that if I can't read it, I'm still going to give them credit. Well, you got to have nice handwriting. Okay? And if your handwriting's not good, and I hear this all the time, well, Professor Souza, I don't have really good handwriting. Well, get good handwriting. Work on your handwriting. Because you're going to be in a meeting sometime and you're not going to have your laptop, and the senior executive is going to ask you to take notes. And then they're going to aggregate the notes, and you're going to be the one, if you're lucky, to basically take all the notes from everybody, because you're going to type up the meeting and the brainstorming session notes. And if you can't read the handwriting from Jill and Tom and Dick, then you're going to be getting up and walking into their office every 10 seconds to try to figure out if that's an S or a 5. So having really good handwriting, which is what I worked on when I was an undergrad, I worked on it really hard, and I got really good handwriting so that if I ever had to take notes and give the notes to somebody, they could read them and type them up. Okay? So you need to have really good handwriting. That's what I use. And it becomes cognitive too. You know, it's motor skills. So you're working on your cognitive motor skills, and you're basically creating, developing your cognitive capabilities for communication and writing. So it's really good practice, and it helps wire your brain to be able to do amazing stuff. Yeah.
So for the pretest, it's like halfway due on the 20th, and it's like.
No, I want to see if you did it.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Some people are done. It's like, oh, that wasn't that bad. I'm totally done. There's some questions I really didn't understand, so I skipped those. But the majority of the stuff is done.
It's like a check-in, and then.
Yeah, I check it, and then what I do is I have like a green circle, because I don't like to put grades on it because people freak out when they get grades. So I put a green circle on on the ones that look good, and then I put a blue on those that are missing some stuff or doesn't have the detail or the diagrams or the equations, and then a red for people who just basically either didn't do it or just, I could see that they were just making shit up, basically. It was putting stuff in there. So they have to go back and redo it. Okay? Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. What was your name again?
Marquez.
Marquez? Yeah, thanks for the question. I appreciate that. And then on Tuesday, Thursday, March 10th and 12th, we're going to have the in-class quiz. Okay? And I will have gone over the quiz by that time. You will have filled out your blue book, the quiz notes, blue book. So now you have your study guide to go from. We'll have the videos for you to review, and I'll have a video review session the Saturday before, from like 11 to 1, like that. Okay? Just to make sure that you have the concepts. And then I'll videotape that too and post that too, so that you have that available. And then you got 2 days to do it. Okay? So you come in, I'll give you the exam. Okay? Everything's on the floor, no cheat stuff, right? You need a calculator. Actually, I don't think you need a calculator for this one, but you need a calculator for the other one. But I have always found at least 2 people that cheat in my class, and it's like, what are you doing? It's like, what do you have, just some kind of conditioned response to cheat? So you've been cheating, your whole academic career, so you feel like you have to cheat in my class? It's like, don't cheat. You come in, you bomb the exam, big deal. Go back, study, take it again. Go back, figure it out. It's like, don't cheat in my class. You're ruining your reputation. You don't need to cheat in my class. I'm not going to hurt you. You didn't study? Great, tell me. I didn't study. Great, go study. Come back, take the exam when you want to. Come to my office. I'll give you as much time as you want to study the material. Take the exam when you want. I don't care. Learn it. Okay, that's it. That's all I care about. And I'll totally accommodate any of those issues. You're sick. Parents come in, you got a baseball game, whatever it is, I'll totally work with you. Just learn the material. That's all I care about. Okay? And then your deliverable package is going to be due. Okay? On the 12th. All right? So again, you got the cover page. You're going to have your memo. You're going to have your in-class quiz. And again, at the quiz, what I'll do is I'll give you the quiz. You'll work on it. Oh, Professor Susan, can I use some time up front in class to study for the quiz? Great, yeah, study for it. And then when you're done, put it all away. I'll give you the quiz. You can start it then. Oh, Professor Souza, I can't do this anymore. I need to study some more. Great, just give you the quiz back to study. Study for the afternoon and the next day. Come back, take the exam, in the next session. Oh, I'm not finished with the exam. I need to study some more. Great, give me the exam back. Let's set up an appointment. Go study. Come to my office. Take the exam. Finish the exam. I don't care. Just learn the material. Okay, do the best you can. So I teach my classes very differently because I want you to learn. And then the extra credit take home, or the extra credit problem set. Okay. Let's see, what else? The class notes, the homework number 1 with the cover page. Okay. The statistical pretest, and your resume. And I thought there was in this one, I thought there was a movie. There should be a movie review worksheet in there. I don't think I handed that out to you, did I? Yeah, I'll give you like a 2-page movie review worksheet, and then you'll watch the Inside Job. Anybody watch the Inside Job? It's a documentary. It was, I believe it won all kinds of awards. Yeah, the Cannes and whatever the big one is in Vail or Sundance, on the origins of the financial crisis. And who all the who were all the culprits. Who basically engineered the financial crisis and walked away with all the money. And, who didn't go to jail. So it's a really good documentary. And then we'll do the Big Short with Brad Pitt, and Kristen Bale. We'll do that for the midterm, and then you can pick a movie, another finance movie, maybe Wall Street or something like that. Whatever movie you want to watch, but it's got to be around economics. Okay, so different types of mediums in this class, right? Exams, presentations, problems, memos, pitch books, all kinds of different types of instruments to kind of train your brain to be multi-versed, in different types of aspects and different types of communication instruments. And then what you're going to do is you're going to have the cover page. I'll bring in a template so you can see it. You're going to have a deliverable cover page, and you're going to clip it together with one of those black bull clips. And then on your way out, you're going to present it to me, and I'm going to have like a stack of, since I do 2 sections, I'm going to have like, a box or 2 of these deliverables. And then me and my team that has been trained in this stuff will go through and check your work for completion, accuracy, give you some feedback on where you can make your improvements. And then the stuff that's graded, you don't have to get back to me. The stuff that needs to be remediated, you resubmit it, and then you get the A. Okay? Is that cool? Stick to the program, we'll all win. Right? All right. And then we'll come back, start doing the second assignment on the homework. You can see that it's significantly less than the first one. We'll do the oil memo. Maybe you won't blow through oil and gold by that time because you're totally into the memos and you're trying to get them all done before the end of the semester, which is a brilliant strategy. Because then you can just print them out. Once I sign off on them, you just print them in color, staple them, stick them in your folder, and then hand in the final color copy at the end of the semester. Okay? And I would make 2 copies of those, one for you and one for me, so that you can start building your portfolio product to be able to show potential employers for internships and jobs. Okay? All right. Or show your mom and your dad, what kind of work you can do. And you all should be thinking about all of your classes and all of your classes. Let me give you some advice. In all of your classes, you should be thinking about any of the assignments that you're doing. How could I refashion, this homework or this case study or something into a product, a report that I can show a potential employer, so that when I walk in for the interview, I basically got a portfolio of work product that I can show them and give them and leave with them. They love that stuff. If you're an architect, that's what you do. You walk into if I'm interviewing to design an office building, I walk in with my folio, basically of all my work, and I walk them through all of the design and all the drawings and all that stuff. Maybe I bring in some miniatures, the type of work that I've done, and I basically make an artistic presentation to them to win the contract. That's what you're doing too. Okay? So start thinking about it. And if you have stuff like that you want to show me, I'll look at it and give you some advice on how to refashion it into a business product that then you can use as part of your portfolio. But you should be thinking about everything that you do in your class. How am I going to use this to get a job and build my career? Okay. So you start to move less towards doing stuff as an academic exercise for a grade, towards doing stuff to build high quality product, to position myself to get the position, to get the job. Okay. And now's the time to really start thinking about that. Okay. And then I'm going to accelerate the memos. We're going to go through the midterm. The midterm shifts from really theoretical into application, and we do a case study after case study after case study. Mission Bay, Salesforce Tower, IBM, Salesforce. We start valuing the securities, valuing the companies, going through investment decision-making processes that I'm just burning into your brain this underwriting process, and how to evaluate investments and how to make investment decisions. Okay, and then we have our spring break, Wahoo. I'm sure Florida, Keys, and Fort Lauderdale is going to be on your, or Las Vegas will be on your bucket list. And then we come back, homework 2 is due. And then we have the midterm exam, the 21st and 23rd. Again, same scenario, 2 days to do it. Okay, I'll have a review session the weekend before. We'll have all the videos, so you got it. And then April 28th and 30th, so you can see the homework just shrinks right there, right? So it's like super easy. And actually, the final is 3 problems taken from the midterm. They're the exact problems. So basically, you don't really have a final, right? Just make it super easy, right? Because usually what happens is when I had the in-class finals, you know, and they're like the last day, the last final, they're cranking away, sweating, all nervous, totally white, you know, angry, you know, sugar levels have crashed, they've been up, you know, pulling all-nighters with coffee and stuff, total freaking nightmare. Said, I'm never doing that again. So you come in, I'll get to the final in a minute. So I make that a little bit easier. So everything shrinks down, and then what we do is we'll pick a bank to do the securities analysis. I'll go over it with you, right? And then you guys will put together the deck, you know, the PowerPoint presentation. And then I'll work with you in Google, what's it called? Google, yeah, the Google Drive. So we'll be working on, last semester was awesome. I was working with my students, I was correcting their stuff, we were working together at the same time, so we were basically a production team working on the PowerPoints. It was freaking awesome. I loved it. So we'll do that. So the stock case studies, we'll start that the 28th and the 30th. And then we'll keep working on it Tuesday, Thursday, the 5th and the 7th. And then we'll do the presentations. You'll come in professionally dressed, you know, in your team. And if you want me to videotape your presentation, I'll do it, provide it to you. If you don't, you put it on the FBI list of most wanted students in the United States. I won't record it. And then the final, you'll come in, and the way I do it is, you know, I'll have my surfing videos up, you know, playing some 90s, you know, Gen X, you know, boomer type music. I'll have some cheesecake and stuff like that. And then I'll do that for like the first half hour. And then I'll do like a half hour of review of the course and, you know, all of the stuff that we learned in the course, so you can remember all the work that you did. And then I'll give you like a 45-minute hour exit lecture. 7-module system that I designed for my students and for basically young professionals, that kind of walks you through, you know, time management and you know, academic and professional planning, investment, personal finance, you know, psychology, you know, just, you know, basically your intellectual infrastructure that you're going to need to program into your brain so that when you're confronted with any issues in the future, you can totally figure out what the solution is and be able to execute on that solution decisively and know that the decisions that you're making are correct. It's kind of the goal of the whole thing. Then we get out a little early, you know, like a half hour early. So I give you that back. You hand me your deliverables. I give you some chocolate. I start crying every time. And then hopefully we'll meet up, you know, at the Metro, you know, between 2 and 4 on that Thursday before we move out on Friday. Okay? And that's kind of it. All right? Any questions on that? Questions? Is that going to work for you guys? Is it going to work? If you got a problem with it, let me know. I'll design a whole new course for you. We'll start doing custom student courses. Right? So I'll just have like 90 of them I have to do, 190 of them I have to do. Okay. So that's that. You guys fill this out. You know what my office hours are. We did the syllabus. Got it. How much time do I have? Because I want to make sure I stay on time.
35 minutes.
Okay. You guys got the, did you get the notes? Okay, everybody get the notes and everything? Okay, awesome. Okay, awesome, awesome. And then you guys got the statistical pretest, right? You got the, boom, okay, okay. I'll do this really quickly, and I'll do this really quickly, and then we'll go up to the course website. And then I'll go through these again next week. So make an attempt at the statistical pretest, and then I'll go through it again and give you some of the answers to the hard questions that you won't know because you don't have 25 years of economic research and forecasting experience. So I'll help you in the modeling stuff. But go ahead and do it, and then try to memorize this stuff too. Okay, so it's really important.
I have a question. Are we
Yeah.
using Wiley Plus?
You can use it if you want to.
Okay, but we don't have to.
What I would do is, buy it and share it. The Wiley Plus is really good because it has examples of walking you through the Excel problems.
Okay.
It's got videos of walking you through the problems, and it's got videos that walk you through their narrated PowerPoints. So if you're going to do the PowerPoint presentation on the chapter,
Yeah.
I'd go watch that PowerPoint.
But our
narrated
homework's on the book, right? If it's through the book, okay.
Yeah.
And this will help us with.
Yeah, and it's, some people like digital media as opposed to hard copy stuff. I'm just concerned about the cost, of books. So I'm giving
Oh,
you,
yeah, it's expensive.
yeah, so I'm that's why I'm saying, share it, share it, and figure out a cost-effective way, for you guys to derive it, okay? Because a lot of students will say, well, the book was a total waste of money.
Yeah, it was like expensive.
Yeah, and people are saying, it's a total waste of money, he doesn't really go through it, blah, blah, blah. Because I'm teaching you my stuff, and then you guys, and I'm teaching you stuff in the book, but if you, it's basically, the course is taught on 3 levels, right? Theoretical, application, and then the book, right? And if you're moving through the book and you're reading, you're gonna pick up a lot of the terminology a lot quicker, and you're gonna understand what I'm saying a lot faster. One of my top students told me sometimes, she said, you know what, I really didn't understand a lot of the stuff that you were explaining in class, you were kind of talking over my head. So then when I started reading the chapters, I understood what you were talking about. It's like, interesting. Isn't that strange? And what I do is I have it on my cell phone, right, so I can read it anywhere, right, if I'm on the bus or standing in line somewhere, I can be reading through the material. I take these books. This is what my old accounting professor did. He would take these books and rip them up by chapter, stick the chapters in his pocket, and when he was walking someplace or standing in line or something, he would just pull out the chapter and start reading it. So it's just, it's however you want to learn. And if you can't afford it, then share it with somebody or just use the resources that are available from you on the course website. Okay? Right. So I'm not forcing you to do anything. I can't force you to do anything. You're adults. You make your own decisions. So statistical pretest really quickly. Law of large numbers. Why do we want to have large standardized data sets? Why do we want large standardized data sets? Why do we want large standardized data sets? Yeah, exactly, because the data sets theoretically should start to approximate a normal distribution. If you get a normal distribution, you can start calculating the mean, the standard deviation, you can start calculating confidence intervals, t-tests. And if the distributions, if you have a lot of data and the distributions are tight, it makes it easier to forecast the means, okay, to forecast the future. And again, do you think if you're a business person, are you going to be forecasting the future? Where the economy is going to go, where your market's going to go, how much sales you're going to have, what your budget's going to be. If something changes, aren't you going to be running sensitivities and scenario analysis to see what the impact is going to be on your business? The answer is yes, that's what you're going to be doing. If you want to be in business, if you don't want to be in business, then go study psychology and become a therapist. Then you don't have to worry about any of this. But you're a business major, you're here in business, and I'm going to teach you business, okay, on multiple levels. First thing is you're going to be dealing with a lot of data. And the top execs are data junkies. They love it, they understand it, they look for it, they study it, They're looking for trends, they memorize the stuff. They're amazing people. They can not only communicate, but they're also scientific in their approach. Okay? And you're going to meet a lot of these people. Okay? The means, the geometric means, when you're calculating returns on a portfolio, you use the geometric mean. Okay? When calculating a mean, well, let's keep going. Then you have different data distributions. Okay? When you go on to do your master's degree at Cal or Stanford or wherever, when you take the finance classes at that level, you're going to be doing simulations. Okay? And in the simulation software that you're using, either MATLAB or SAS or other types of software applications, they're going to ask you in the application, what is the data distribution? And then you're going to put in the data distribution, or pick the distribution type, and then you're going to run the statistical analysis so that the statistics that are spit out from the simulation are accurate, and the information that's produced is accurate, and the information that's produced you can use for investment decision or business decision making. Okay, so you got to understand the different distributions, and you got to not only define them, but you got to show me the diagram. Because I need you to memorize stuff through cognitive imagery. Okay, and that's how most people memorize stuff. So the distributions are important. And if you read through the book, if you've already read the book, you can see that they already talked about a lot of this stuff. And that the statistics is a prerequisite for the course. Okay, so I'm just going over stuff that's already in the book and stuff that's you've already been exposed to. Mean, median, and modes. What are mean, median, and modes? What do they do? What do they tell you about the data? If my mean, median, and mode are clustered together, what does that tell you about the data? Okay, you're going to have to look this stuff up because you don't remember your statistics course. Those are measures of central tendency. Okay? And if they're close together, that means you have a really good distribution, very tight distribution, so that you can run the statistics, get the information, and make the decisions. Okay? What's the problem with using a mean? We use means. We use means in most cases. But what's the problem in using a raw mean calculation or a raw average calculation? What's the problem? Or what could be a problem? Outliers, got it. It's going to skew the distribution. So usually what you're going to do is you're going to log the data, which will normalize the data as a belt distribution. Then you filter out outside 2 standard deviations. I would be writing notes on this stuff if you don't understand it. I would be writing notes. I'd be writing notes, right? What you do is you end up filtering out the logged numbers outside 2 standard deviations, then you convert them back using an exponential function. And now what you've done is you've filtered out the outliers, so now you can calculate the mean and the standard deviation. Okay? Because you might have some data in your data sets that are erroneous, coded wrong or something, or just for extreme cases, and you just get rid of it. Okay? Then you got skewness, kurtosis, and leptokurtic conditions. Okay, skewness does it skew to the left to the right. Leptokurtic is it's peaky, and the leptokurtic is the totally messed up distribution, which has a fat tail, it's skewed, and then has a really small tail on the end. So it's kind of a messed up distribution. But I'll go over it with you because it's totally relevant. Because after the financial crisis, leptokurtic distribution started to occur because of the black swan event of the financial crisis. Do you think that the financial crisis is going to occur again? Absolutely. Okay. And it's sooner than you think. Because usually financial crises and recessions occur within the first 5 years of every single decade. And where are we now? 2020. And I've been saying 21 through 23 for like 9 years. Okay. Because everybody asks me, right? When's the next recession? What should I be doing, Professor? How should I be rearranging my investments? What should I be buying? What should I be selling? What should I be doing? I'm scared. Okay. And then you have histograms, stem leaf, and box plots. So that's data visualization. So you want to show me an example, give me the definitions. The variance, the standard deviation, and confidence interval. When I say variance and standard deviation, that's the first thing that pops into your head. What? No. No, I'm training you. When you see or hear variance and standard deviation, the first thing that should pop into your in your mind is volatility and risk. So the higher the standard deviation, the higher the variance, the more risk there is in your investment. Okay? And then what we'll do is we'll play with returns divided by standard deviation to calculate risk-adjusted rates of return. And then make portfolio decisions based off of that simplistic calculation. Okay? And then the next one is the confidence levels. We use 99, 95, 90 in the social sciences. Actually, in the sciences, we use 99% confidence level because we have really large data samples, like thousands or hundreds of thousands, especially when I'm doing genome, DNA type sequencing and stuff. I'm using maybe even 1 billion, cells or DNA samples. So the 99% confidence level to test the statistical significance between the independent variable, we'll use 99. But in the social sciences, since we don't have usually large data sets of that size, to get the influence of the independent variables, statistical significance, to really pick it up, we got to lower our confidence level. And usually sometimes even 95 isn't really low enough to pick up the statistical significance. So sometimes we have to go as low as 90. And most academicians and professionals in the social sciences will run the t-tests and all of the regression diagnostics using both the 95 and 90. Okay? And then the z-test is a student test of statistical significance for the independent variable, but it's for small sample sizes, and usually our sample sizes are larger. They're not 5; they're usually 25 and above, or 250 or something. So we use the t-statistic in regression analysis to test the statistical significance of the independent variables, ability to predict the dependent variable. And then the f-statistic is the model statistic. Is the model doing a good job of predicting revenues and returns or what production or whatever it is that you're trying to forecast. And then the coefficient of variation is the standard deviation divided by the annual return. And the risk-adjusted rate of return is the annual return divided by the standard deviation. So it's just an inverse of the two. Okay, I'm trying to train you on how to think in these terms. And then the covariance is basically an average of the variance between, let's say, two variables. Do they vary together? Okay. We want, when we're building portfolios and we're putting assets in the portfolio, we don't want a high covariance. We don't want them covariating together, because that means we're not getting diversification. We want a low covariance, where there's little covariance, or there's no low or negative correlation between the returns. Okay, and I'll go through that too. And then I'll show you the graph. And then you need to go into the book, or go on into Google, or go into an investments book and find the, quote, portfolio standard deviation. Not the standard deviation, but the portfolio standard deviation. And give me the one that has the covariance on the end, and give me the one that has the correlation on the end. Okay? Because we're trying to calculate the portfolio standard deviation. And if the covariance goes up, then your portfolio standard deviation goes up. If the covariance goes down, the portfolio standard deviation goes down. If the correlation goes up, portfolio standard deviation goes up. If the correlation goes down, the portfolio standard deviation goes down. Okay? I'm going through your pre-test right now, and if you're taking notes, you'll have at least a quarter of it done by the end of this lecture. And then the value of using regression forecasting. Boom, got it. And I'll write the equation up on the board to show you the time series regression model that you want to burn into your brain for the rest of your life. Okay? And then there's cross-sectional regression analysis using one time period over a panel of companies. Time series regression, one company, same variables over time. Okay? So you got to understand both cross-sectional and time series regression, because you're going to be building models or asked to build models. If somebody asks you to build a model, what's your answer?
Sure.
Yep, you got it. So you're going to need to know the two. And then, from my experience, when I'm working with startup companies and stuff, they don't have a lot of time series data, so we do panel data. We find the variables that will help us predict with the future cash flows or stock prices or returns are gonna be. We find the variables, and then what we do is we find other firms, okay? We find a huge sample of other firms just like us, run the regression, get the coefficients, and then forecast those variables for our company to be able to predict for our company. So we use cross-section to be able to do forecasting. And then if I'm an established company and I've been around 10, 20 years, I can use quarterly data or monthly data going back in time, so I have a nice, robust time series to be able to run the regression and do the forecast model. You can forecast the future, you're going to be extremely successful because people are always asking you, what do you think? What should we do? What should I do? Well, I don't really know, but let's collect the data, let's build the model, let's do the forecast, let's back test it, and if it works, here's my recommendation. Okay? Nobody's going to argue with that. Okay? And then determining the dependent variable, which is the variable you want to forecast. Usually it's going to be based on the industry or the function of the firm that you're in. It's going to be based on prior research that's been done at the industry level and and through the academy, through peer-reviewed journal articles, through academic research, and then through those research reports, plus the experience of the people around you, and the research articles that were written and published in the peer-reviewed journal articles, will give you an indication of what variables you should be using to forecast whatever that dependent variable is. Let's say it's revenue in the high-tech, social media sector, whatever it is. And that's how you would determine and select it. And then you can use the F and the T statistic again, maybe the adjusted R square and the correlation to be able to test the statistical significance. Multicollinearity is a big issue. I'm building a model, and students go, oh, let's just throw a bunch of variables in there, the more the merrier, woo-hoo. No, it's not a party. You don't want to have more than 5 variables in any model. And usually, even with 5 variables, you're going to have a couple variables that are highly correlated to each other. So you're going to have to figure out which one you're going to keep and which one you're going to throw out. And you end up keeping the one. I'm giving you the answer right now, so if you guys write really fast, you're going to complete most of the pretest. What you do is you don't, both variables are statistically significant, maybe one more than the other, in predicting the dependent variable. But one variable has been cited the most in research, industry and academic research, over a long period of time. So basically the variable that you keep in the model is based on theory, the literature, and based on the history of the publications that have been written prior. That variable has always been statistically significant over and over again in peer-reviewed journal articles and industry research going back 10, 20, 30 years. So it becomes theory. Okay? Is this all a review for you? Some, a little bit? No, they didn't teach you this in your stats class? No, let's do that. So there's internal validity and external validity. Internal validity is you need to have buy-off by the internal executives within the firms that are making investment decisions and business decisions. So basically your model, not only do you get a back test to make sure that it's correct, but it's got to be bought off, signed off on by the senior level executives. It's got to make sense. So there's internal validation associated. External validation is the model that you used, is the results that you got consistent with the peer-reviewed journal articles and industry research. So you're getting external validation from the outside research, okay? And usually when you're presenting the results of your research and you're doing the presentation in front of the investment committee or the senior executives of the board of directors, they're going to be asking you questions like, how did you build the model? How did you know that the model that you built was correct? How did you determine the independent variables? What were the T and the F and the correlations? What literature did you use? Can you cite the literature off the top of your head of what seminal articles that were used to basically guide you in the model construction, in the data collection? You got to defend yourself. I mean, they're going to attack you in your assumptions, and you got to be able to defend yourself. Okay, and the only way you can do that is to be totally prepared and to thought through what the questions are going to be and be prepared to answer them. There's systematic and unsystematic risk. There's a chart on that in book. You know, you have risk, you know, on the y-axis. You know, you basically have number of assets in the portfolio on the x-axis. And basically, as you add more assets to the portfolio, whose returns have no low or negative correlation with each other, it gets rid of the unsystematic risk. So the last thing that you're left with is the systematic risk. Okay? And that's reflected in the beta. Okay, and you're going to learn about that, the beta calculation. So the systematic risk, you can't diversify away. Okay, but you can diversify the other. You can't diversify away fiscal policy, monetary policy, political outcomes. But you can diversify your portfolio using portfolio theory and strategy and diversification techniques. You can do that. Okay, so that's that one. Okay, we'll move pretty quickly through the pretest. And then you got to show me a balance sheet. Okay? What are the typical line items on the asset and the liability side? As you know that the assets and the liabilities need to match up by maturity. The economic life of the assets and the maturity of the debt instruments need to match up. You can't be using short-term debt to buy long-term assets, right? Or long-term debt to buy short-term assets. That's a mismatch. You're going to run your company into the ground. So short with short, medium with medium, long with long, and then long you have like retained earnings, owner's equity, and long-term bonds, and some other stuff in there. All right, so show me what that is. Show me a income statement, okay? Because you're going to be when you're out here, you're going to be doing pro forma income statements, which are projections, okay, of the income statement. You're going to do all this research, and you're going to get earnings or net operating income, or whatever the metric is, and then you're probably going to discount all those cash flows back and calculate a net present value and an internal rate of return and make an investment decision off of it. Okay, I'm kind of jumping through the class really quickly, bringing all the stuff up front so you hear it for the first time, and then as we start to work through it, you're going to hear it over and over and over again. By the end of the semester, you're going to be screaming at me going, Jesus, Professor Susie, you told us that like 15 times. We know. It's like, excellent. Just I want to make sure you know. Okay? And then show me the cash flow statement. Sources, uses of funds, those kind of things. And then these are the key financial ratios. When I'm doing financial ratio analysis, which is the first step in assessing the overall financial condition and position of the firm, the first step in valuing a company or valuing their stock, I need to know the return on equity, which is the #1 metric for stock investors. Then looking at our return on assets, debt to equity, debt to market cap, is your leverage ratios. If the firm's over-levered, they're juicing up ROE. But if things go south, they default on their bonds, the stock price is going to crash, the bonds are going to crash, they over-levered the firm, they totally screwed it up. The companies and the executives they have incentive to over-lever the firm, to juice the ROE, to pump up the stock price because they're given stock options and stock grants. So usually what they'll do is they'll over-lever the firm in their tenure, they'll inflate the stock price, they'll exercise the options, they'll basically announce their retirement because they want to spend more time with the family, and they basically leave the company multimillionaires, and within 2-3 years the company is under distress because of their policies, and they basically hand it a nightmare bag to the following CFO, CEO, and CIOs of the company. You see it all the time, particularly in startup companies. Okay, earnings per share, which is the earnings of the firm divided by the shares outstanding. Again, if I can project the earnings and what the shares outstanding are going to be, I can forecast the earnings per share. If I know the earnings per share, I can either divide it by an expected return, or use the Gordon growth model, or multiply it by some PE, price to earnings multiple, to get the value of the company. Okay, so PE is really, earnings per share is important, and PE is important too. Weighted average cost of capital. I'm working for a large corporation, been around a long time, multinational, or maybe a mid-large company. They're publicly traded, both their stocks and bonds. I want to calculate the weighted average cost of capital based on their capital structure, because you're going to use, the company's going to use, that weighted average cost of capital is the discount rate to discount cash flows back on investments that they're going to make, either buying companies, investing in plant and equipment, whatever it is. That's the capital budgeting decision-making process. So the WAC calculation is extremely important. And I'll walk you through all of that stuff, okay? And then we have 4 intrinsic valuation models. You gotta burn this stuff into your brain. The perpetuity, the Gordon growth, the multiple, and the discounted cash flow approach. And that's it. Okay? I'll go over it again. You do the best you can, it's pretty straightforward, and then leave the gaps and we'll go over it again. And I'll spend a little bit more time. I gave you notes. Am I out of time? Okay, 8 minutes. Okay, got it. And then here's the exam. Let me walk through the course really quick. Blah, blah, blah. Here's all the videos that I'm going to be posting up there, and I got videos from prior courses if you're interested in seeing, you know, my Academy Award-winning performance, you know, over the last 5 years or 4 years. Here's the calculator examples. I don't know, did I hand those out to you? Examples for the calculators. No, do this, but you can, that's for the calculator calculations. And then here's the product innovation notes that I produced. I took pictures of it from my prior classes and posted them up there. If anybody's interested in taking the SIE exam, which is the first half of the Series 7, which is to become a registered representative to sell stocks, bonds, you know, and option contracts if you want to do investment advisory. If you get the SIE exam and you want to go work in marketing at BlackRock or Schwab or B of A or Wells, and you have the SIE, you're going to be at the top of the list. Okay, your resume goes to the top because you passed the exam, which tells you that you know something about the industry. And if you couple that with a little R and Python and some macros and HV lookups, you know, and you know, do graphs and tables nicely in Excel, boom, your resume goes to the top. So if you're interested in that, that's there for you. There's the syllabus. Here's the statistical pre-test. Here's my notes. And here's the supplemental materials. So if you click on that, there's like 5 statistical reports that you can use as resources to move through the statistical pre-test. I'm just laying it out for you, right? Because I want you to learn as quickly as possible, so it's a matter of consumption. The more I learn, the smarter I get. Okay? Faster I learn, the smarter I get. Okay? Calculator, actual calculator manuals. So the Texas Instrument, the APs, I downloaded the actual manuals. Those are available to you too. If anybody's interested in doing simulated stock portfolio trading or options trading, there's a bunch of websites here where you can set up like a proxy portfolio of stocks and start trading the stocks and see how you do. And there's actually a couple competitions too, if you want to game that. Here's the in-class exam. Here's the solutions to the stuff at the end of the exam, because it's like my stuff and then there's some problems. So here's the solutions. And then you got the extra credit, the solutions, you got the midterm, you know, all freaking laid out for you, right? How am I doing on time?
5 more minutes.
How much?
5.
Okay, got it. Okay, and this is basically a regurgitation of the syllabus, statistical pre-test. Oh, here's the supplemental materials again. All the exams, right, and yield curves. Oh, here we go. This is pretty cool. Here's all your PowerPoint presentations right here. Oh shit! I even got a instructor edition, PowerPoint presentations, homework solutions. This is awesome. Yeah, totally. Okay, and then let's see, review courses right here. Your stats, finance, accounting, economics, econometrics, quantitative finance, all that stuff is up there. So you can just watch the 20-minute video and know what financial econometrics are, what quantitative finance is, if you're interested in going in that direction. Review your financial statement analysis, financial ratio analysis, review monetary policy, macroeconomics, whatever it is that you need or you feel that you have a deficiency. Here's the movie review worksheet right here. Here's a presentation that I did and scared the bejesus out of my students right after Trump won the election. I was like freaking out. And I was asked to do a presentation in front of a bunch of rich real estate people, which are mostly Republican. And I basically laid out his policy platform that he said he was gonna do, and basically the social, psychological pathologies and psychoses that actually have manifested in and around the election, and particularly after the election. This place was a freaking nightmare on campus here. I mean, seriously, there was assaults on women, there was assaults on minorities, people were being yelled epithets at people. It was the craziest time I have ever seen on a campus, not only here, but at San Francisco State, USF, San Jose State, Davis. I mean, I read all of it. It was unfreaking believable. So that was my take on it. Here's the memo review video. Here, some memo reviews. I'll go over it. There's some stuff. The microeconomics, the financial product innovations, memo samples, yield curve dynamics, all kinds of lectures, all kinds of resources. It's a knowledge base for you. Okay. Am I out of time? Okay. And then this piece down here is what we'll be working on at the end of the semester. The pitch books, evaluation methods, some resources. I'll update this so it's going on. But this, just so that you can kind of see what we're doing in the class. Okay? So we're going to do a lot. You're going to get a lot out of it, I hope. Okay? So my goal is to do the best I can to give you the intellectual infrastructure you guys need to make correct, decisive decisions for your life. Okay? If there's anything else, join the finance club, join the marketing club, join the club, become a leader. They hire the leaders of the clubs. And if you become a leader, lead the club. If they have leaders of the clubs, they're leaders, and they screw it up. Thank you.